Hello, everyone. I'm back. Oh my God, you guys, welcome to Too Stupid to Live, a podcast that reviews romance novels $5 and under. I'm your host, Becky Feldman. Happy New Year. I know it's February, but I usually take time off in January, so happy New Year. It is so good to be back. And it is so good to be back with a special Hot as Hell with TSTL episode. So, for the new listeners out there, Hot as Hell with TSTL are special episodes where I talk with romance writers about the latest things going on in their lives. Usually it means that they have a new book out, but we talk about other stuff too. And today is extra special because my lovely friend Amy Spalding is here to talk about her newest book in her Out in Hollywood romance series, At Her Service. I absolutely loved this book. I love the way Amy writes about Los Angeles. I love her characters, and you are going to love this episode. So please enjoy Amy Spalding getting hot as hell with TSTL. Amy Spalding, welcome back to this podcast, Too Stupid to Live.
Becky Feldman, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited you're back. My first question was going to be, how did your life change for the better since last appearing on this podcast? It seems like it's been amazing.
Yeah, it actually has been. I guess it was like a year ago that I was
Mm-hmm.
last on your podcast. So my first like adult romance came out, and I feel like it was like well received, and I don't know. I really like being a romance author. I mean, it was not that I didn't think I would be, but like it's just really readers are really passionate. I feel like in YA, like you don't really, except for really famous authors, I feel like they don't hear, like you don't hear from teens, you don't know. You're like, I assume people like this. They bought it. We'll find out, I guess. Someday, maybe never. But like in romance, people are like they will, I don't know, they'll reach out on social media, they'll make like cool posts. If you go to events, they're there, they're really enthusiastic. It's just great. It's really great.
It's awesome. It really does feel like there's like more transparency, like with romance readers in the community and authors, because like you're like I feel like romance novels are so private and so personal, and you're writing for something like that. Like reading is such a personal, like internal, sensitive thing, and it's like there's like some side of like there's like a spiritual bond between a reader and a story, and like you're responsible for that, and it's like of course people would like reach out. That's awesome.
That's so nice. What a lovely way to look at it.
You're
I
change
love that.
but you like change people's mood, like like I mean I finished your book, and like last night I was like all like had this week has been annoying, and just
I
being
feel like
able to
everyone is having an annoying week. It just feels like it's in the air.
it's in the air. And then okay, side note, you have a chapter in your book where the character, it's chapter 6, and it was like she had the exact same day that I feel like I had, and it ends with like an awful date when you're just like all over the place, and I was like, this chapter is perfect. I was like, my first note, I love chapter 6. That's all I wrote down.
That was like literally one of those things where I wrote it. I was like, like you like want to barf because you like feel it happen. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm not always mean to my characters, but like I'm mean. I feel like as an author, like mean a few times in this book, and like that chapter was like we've all been there, right? We've
Yeah.
all had a chapter 6.
Oh yeah, we've all been in chapter 6. But before that, you were awarded a Human Rights Campaign Visibility Award since I
That
last
is
saw you.
that is true. It feels weird to be like, how are things? And it's like, well, I won an award.
It's amazing. I watched your speech. I'm assuming you got to meet Amy Schneider. And it was
I didn't. We were at different galas. It was so sad. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, what was Amy Schneider like?" I'm like, she was in her hometown and I was in my hometown and we did not meet. It was so
I
sad.
am so sorry. That was like the first thing I thought of. Like, yeah, it's great. You
No,
looked great. You gave
everyone
such
was
a
like,
beautiful speech. But I'm like, but Amy Schneider, she was like a part of the family. That whole
yeah.
time she was on
Well,
Jeopardy.
also it's like two Amy S's one. So I thought I was like, we would like, come on. Obviously, we would just be like best friends based off of that.
Yes, yeah. But let's talk about that. But because it is a huge feat, and it was like you gave such a beautiful speech, and like I was like brought to tears. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I got an email that was like, we want to like, I work with the HRC. We want to give you this award. And I forwarded it to my publicist and said, I think this is a scam. Find out what's
Sure.
going on.
Sure. That's the first thought anyone gets. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she's like, oh, I'll look into it, but like, this is real. But like, sure, I'll find out more. And I was like, I don't think it's real. And I sent a screenshot of it to a few friends, and they're all like, what is the scam? They're not asking you for money. There's no
Right.
link to click. There's like, and I'm like, well, like I would go, I would say, okay. And then I would get there. And then like they'd all point and laugh and be like, you really thought you were getting an award. You're a loser.
I thought you were going to say they put like a shirt over your head and like put you in a van or something and it'd be like, Jesus.
No, that's actually like harmful. Mine would just be
Yeah.
like my best friend was like, oh, so you're worried they're gonna like carry you. And I was like, yes, I'm worried that there's gonna be like pig's blood and bullying.
Oh, God.
He's
Yeah.
like, why would they spend that much money and time? I'm like, because they really want to humiliate me, and that really ups the stakes.
Yeah.
So
Mm
once I got past that, I probably was not gonna be pranked or scammed.
hmm. Mm hmm.
I then became obsessed with what was I gonna wear because like plus size formal wear is bullshit. Anyone listening who is plus size is like nodding emphatically. I know it. And so I was determined, and I was like, I'm winning an award. I want to look like the one thing I don't want to worry about is how I look. Do you know what I mean? I want to
Yeah.
feel like I look great. And I actually like I was just talking to you before we started recording. I like giving speeches actually. I like public speaking. I know that makes me weird. I feel so fortunate. I feel that way. Like what a lucky thing to like
Agreed.
not
Yeah.
be afraid of or hate.
Mm hmm.
So I was like, okay, well, I know I can do this, but like I need a dress where I'm not like feeling like shit. Like I need to feel
Yeah.
good.
Mm hmm.
And it was so stressful because like I ordered the perfect dress and then I got it and it had like no give and the sizing did not match what was on the size chart.
Mm hmm.
So I was like two sizes up. And then I ordered some other dresses and one came and was like garbage and one came and it was like okay, but not special. The bigger dress came and it was so big it like fell off of me. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna order the dress in the middle. This is like a Goldilocks situation. I don't know what I'm gonna do if it's like not just right. But it fit perfect. It fit slightly large, but it
You
was fine.
look
Um,
great, by the way. Like
Thank
I was
you.
like I was watching it and I like saw you and like it's like that's so great you're winning this award visibility, but I'm like but I was like she looks amazing. It was a
Thank you.
gorgeous dress.
And it was from ASOS and it was like
Mhm.
$140. It wasn't even like
Ooh,
I
that's
know, it
nice.
was not even super expensive. I was
Mhm.
so happy with it. So, and it was so nice to get there and just be like, I look great. I know I
Yeah.
do. This is the perfect dress. I can't believe I found it.
Mhm. So
Because
you
I
look
wanted to
great.
look like myself too. Like a lot
Mhm.
of dresses are, I don't know, it's a weird thing to be like, in your 40s and you're like, I still want to look fun and cool. But then you like look at dresses and they're like, this is for the mother of a bride. And I'm like, I am not even a bride. I'm
Yeah.
not the mother of one.
I am obsessed with toddler. Like, I wish there were, like, I'm obsessed with the toddler grandma look. I know that was like a trend that came out a
Yes.
few years ago, but I've just now embraced it. But yeah, it's like, why can't when you're like close to 40 or in your 40s, like wear something like frivolous and fun and sparkly? Like, we're not
Yes.
dead, you know?
Yes. And I'm like, no, I don't want it to be as like, maybe short or bright or whatever else that I would have in my 20s. But
Hmm.
like, I'm hopefully very far from dead. And even if I'm not far from dead, I hope I'm far from old. So you know what like I'm
Yeah.
like, come on, like I want to look cool. So
Right. Yeah.
it was stressful, but once I got the dress, I was like, oh yeah, I guess I should write a speech. It's fine. Because that was like the thing I was the most worried about. But it was great. The HRC was so sweet to me. They gave me like a whole table, so I got to have like nine of my friends with me back in my hometown. So it was just, I don't know, everything about it was just lovely.
Hmm. You said a lot of great things that got such great reactions. Like you were talking about how like, oh, you were writing characters who were learning lessons that you wish you could have learned at that age. What were people's reaction to your speech, like live, like after you gave it?
I felt like a freaking rock star. It was like, I feel like in some ways, like the most loved I will ever feel in my life to like come off that stage and everyone is just like applauding.
Hmm.
And also, like, all the speeches that night were they were like activism oriented and like really like pushing people to do good and really motivating. And so I knew how it felt when the other people spoke. So then when it was me, it was just like oh, it feels really special to like get to do this for other people.
Hmm.
But it was just like such a love fest. And the thing that you also like, I guess it like it doesn't violate copyrights, but to like put it up would violate copyrights. But they made like an intro video for me. And so it was
Cool.
also like Amy Spalding. And then
That's awesome.
like some of my audiobook readers, they had them like reading parts from the books that were like parts about like queer identity or whatever else. And
Hmm.
then like uh had stuff from reviews, had stuff from like interviews I'd done. It was just really cool. It just felt I was just like, oh my God, I've never felt so special. This is amazing.
It was amazing.
But yeah,
And yeah.
the room was so full of love. Like like walked off the stage and on the side and people were just like waving and like high-fiving me. And I'm like, maybe athletes feel like this, but normally when you're like like an indoor kid writer, you just don't get that.
There's nothing like, I mean, like I know I'm like the millennial that's like everyone gets a participation prize. Like, but winning awards just like I'm like that's so cool. Like, but
Yeah.
I do think like award or otherwise, it does speak to the fact that like you are writing like fun queer stories where queer people are getting their happily ever afters, and in this day and age, like that's political. That is activism.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I'm giving this like talk tomorrow that has a lot to do with that. And it's always like a thing that I remember of how I used to feel when like people would be like, "Oh, this YA book has like queer people in it." I'm like, "Oh my God, amazing." And I would read it and it would be like a queer person who got murdered. And I'm like, "Why would you tell me this?" And they're like, "Well, everyone felt bad." And I'm like, "Is that where we are?" I just don't think it is.
I feel so seen. Like,
Yeah, thank God I see myself in this murdered child. And so things got so much better there. And I feel like YA was like ahead of the curve when it came to queer representation, despite how long it felt like it took to get there. It was still like, you know, when I was like publishing queer YA, like traditionally published romance, there'd be like one a year, two a year,
mhm.
maybe. So like, and that has completely changed now too. So it feels so good to be part of that. Also, because like I want to read those books. So
Yeah.
it's good for me too on a selfish level.
I want to ask when For Her Consideration came out, what was like some of the reactions to that? Because you were, it was geared towards not YA, it was geared toward an adult older like readership. Like, what were some of the reactions you got with that book?
I think people were really, I think some of my, like the readers of mine that were adults who read YA were really happy that I was writing adult.
Same, I'm one of
And,
them. I just want to say,
and then like, I got a bunch of new readers who like basically, because, a lot of adults just don't read YA. And that's, by the way, no shade in either direction. It's great when adults read YA. It's fine when they don't. I am always like, there's probably some stuff in there you like. If you like romance, check some out, but like no
hmm,
pressure.
yeah.
Um, so like I also got all these new readers who I was like brand new to, and that was exciting. And I think like, you know, writing a Hollywood book that was like really inside baseball in some ways was fun because I think it's not what a lot of people are doing. It's more like the glamorous side. And,
Hmm.
I just like the assistants and other people who are just using like Outlook and Excel and trying to like just get through their day.
Yeah.
So I think that was fun for people. And of course, like in For Consideration, the main character is plus size. And I always just get really lovely feedback when I write, characters who are fat, who are bigger, etc. And there was like one review of At Her Service. They're like, I do love it, but I wish there was more body diversity. I'm like, I know. I picked a side character. It's fine. There's gonna be more in the future. I promise. It's all good.
Yeah, I'm excited for the next stories in this because you really did create world. And going back to the life of a Hollywood assistant, and I think what you did so well in the previous book and in this book was bringing about like bringing up how mundane and weird it is. Like, it's not glamorous. Like, you're sitting on calls, you think like she has a like the main character in this book has like this specific moment where she's like sitting on a call and her mom thinks they're probably talking about something amazing, and she's like, they're talking about reservations or they're talking about this and that, and it's so boring.
It's so boring. And even when it's interesting, you're like not allowed to contribute or say anything because you're just like taking notes for like more important people to
Yeah.
like do something.
Yeah, and you kind of like, and I mean this in a good way. Like, you have to kind of like pretend that what they're talking about is like really important as well. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
Like, like if someone's like just like the amount of times like I feel like I've been like sitting and like listening to people like talk about getting some weird like medical procedure that you know, not medical procedure, but some cosmetic thing that like,
Yes.
you know, and you're just like nodding and
Or
like
just like a
thinking,
really expensive vacation that you could
yes.
not, like you would literally drain your own savings to take. And they're just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I guess I have to go here again. And you're like, cool.
Yeah,
Sounds
it's like, oh,
terrible.
must be so hard. Or in this case, salads, you know, people are talking about. I mean,
So much
salads.
salad talk.
There's a lot of salad talk. And I thought that rang true very much as well. Because I just feel like there was like a few years ago where there was like everyone was talking about like this one salad that everyone was getting when they were
Yes.
when they were pregnant.
Yes. There was that. And then there was like that Kardashian salad that everyone was
Mm-hmm.
talking about that you had to like get somewhere in the valley. But then people who had it were like, it's not really that good. And I'm like, can we just eat like salads we want to eat and not like weird trend salads? I don't understand.
It drives me nuts that they're so expensive, and I have paid for them. Like, I
Oh,
haven't
sure.
not paid for
Yes.
them. I've eaten those salads.
Well, also there's such a weird like cult of like eating a certain way. I feel like in Hollywood, like when I like was in my 20s and I was a studio assistant, there was like a guy who worked like in the next cubicle who was like an amateur bodybuilder. And he would just always be like, oh, people who eat carbs are disgusting. And like shoveling pasta in my mouth. And I'm
Right?
like,
Yeah.
at a certain point, I just walked into my boss's office and I'm like, can we just do something about him talking about carbs all the time? But you
Mm-hmm.
know, he was a aspiring bodybuilder, so I understand it was hard for him.
It must. Yeah, he was probably like just like talking to himself. I wonder where he is now.
I
It's Jeff
know.
Bezos. Okay.
I remember he always smelled like protein shakes.
Oh God.
That like because he would like mix them at his desk and then that like powder would like, like waft through.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Oh
I'm like, this
man.
is Hollywood, everyone. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
sounds so glamorous. This is what it is. Just protein shake powder wafting up my nose.
Like, welcome to Hollywood, folks. But your main character, Maxine Max, she does have like big dreams. That something that I related to in it is that she has big dreams and a lot of talent, a lot of like loyalty and passion for finding good work, helping actors, you know, helping to put on a good movie for the folks. And there's something that I related in that like everyone around her thought she was just an assistant, thought that, oh, you're gonna leave one day, like this isn't your job, right? Anyway, and then they're just like moving on with their lives, being like, well, let's find someone, da da da, and she's like, I'm right here, and like
Yeah.
that I related to so much.
I feel like it's so common that you're like, I just feel like I'm good at this and I'm doing everything I can. And people are like, well, someone who's going to want to do this is really going to shine. And you're like, am I not shining? What am I not doing?
Yeah, it's almost like you kind of it's this double-edged sword of like if you're too good at your job, like they want you
Yes.
to stay there and not move up. But if you're bad at your job, you get
They
so
also
if
don't
you
want you to
you
be
get
there.
fired.
Yeah. It's really a lose-lose scenario. And I also
Yeah.
think like I thought a lot about, like female ambition and ambition for things that is not that are like obviously she like Max really cares about like good projects and things that will like match what actors actually want to do with their careers, etc.
Hmm.
But ultimately, she's not like trying to get like an amazing like, political person into office or like cure an illness.
Hmm.
And so I think there's always this weird feeling, I think for me, like, well, I do want to advance in my career and I do want to succeed. And it's not like this is like philanthropic. I just want this for myself. And I feel like it can like feel like gross to say almost.
I I think that yeah, I think that's 100% a thought only women have. Well, that's not true, but
Yeah.
like I
No, but yeah, well, mostly, yeah.
yeah. I
No,
can't speak for
I
everyone.
don't. I feel like I have so many friends who've been told some version of like, you're too ambitious or like, you're too serious about your goals or like, you care too much about this. And it's like, I just don't think most men are getting told that.
Yeah. I feel like if I were reading Max's character and it were male, I'd be like, this is a normal not a normal
Yeah,
person, but
but
do you know what
yes,
I mean?
exactly.
But
Yeah.
like I feel like this is just what everyone's like. Like it's almost gotten to the point where it's like even in like fiction, you're like, oh, I don't even want to make my characters too ambitious, and it's like Jesus, this is
Yes.
fiction.
Yeah. And I really want to fight against that sort of like gut feeling of like, I don't know, like, is it gross to want something too much? And it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah. And like the in this book, like there is such work-life balance, and I think that was what was so great about it is that like yeah, you know, there is the stereotype of the woman who's like always working and she's so ambitious and she has no time for anything. And it's like, well, no, life isn't like that. You know, this is
Yeah.
this character.
Yeah. And that was, I think that was important to me too, to show like, no, 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 I mean, she works a lot and maybe she works a little more than she should, but
Hmm.
like, she does have friends. She does go out. She's like, I mean, does it count if you're working too much if you're at the bar where the bartender you have a crush on is working? Like, no, I don't think that counts necessarily as work. Like
Yeah,
she's
and it's fun work. Like she does the
it's
stuff
fun
she
work.
likes doing at that time.
Yes.
And so there that I used to do script coverage and I feel like compared to like other office assistant stuff, that to me is preferable at a bar than
Yeah, my old roommate did
anything.
script coverage when she worked at a talent agency and then worked in development slash production at a network. And like, so she was always like taking scripts around. And like, it never felt like she minded that. I mean, there were better scripts than others she had to read, but like, it was
Hmm.
clearly not a bad part of her job.
No, not at all. Because it's like if you enjoy reading, that's what you're doing, you know. And yeah, you got to give your opinion, but you know, it's fun to read.
It was crazy because she worked at ABC and it was like when Lost was on and she would get the scripts
um,
early, obviously, because that's when scripts are available.
right.
And she'd be like, you literally, like, you can't look at that. I would get fired if you even looked at it. And I'm like, but that's what happens on Lost. I could just look.
Yeah.
So, like, it would be on the table and I wouldn't be allowed to touch it. It was very hard.
That's insane. I feel like I might have told you the story, but like one time I had a meeting at Disney and like I had to sign like 5 NDAs because they were editing the Avengers on the 5th floor and our meeting was on the 1st floor and then we had the meeting outside. They were
It's
so hardcore.
it's so funny because I'm doing research for a future book and
Mm,
I was talking to someone what it was like to like be the book is not about this. This is just like a piece of backstory and
right.
I take my Hollywood research really seriously because like it drives me nuts when people get it wrong. So I'm like, not me.
Yes. Hmm.
Other things maybe, but not Hollywood.
No,
I was
I'm
talking
the
to
same
someone,
way. Yeah.
yeah, who was on the set of like Star Wars and also had some friends who'd been on the set of Marvel stuff. And the amount of secrecy that has to happen is bonkers.
Yeah.
Like even like when you're on the set, like they would maybe, they can't be like Darth Vader come here for your, to do the scene because like they're like people are literally like trying to like um find ways to like get the sound. Like maybe someone might export it or they like might fly a
Mm,
drone overhead. So
hmm.
like everything has to have a code name. People have to wear robes over everything, no matter where they go, if they might be seen. I'm just
Hmm.
like, the level of secrecy is just, it's bonkers. But also they're like, there's people constantly trying to figure out because sites could literally make millions of dollars in ads and whatever else if they could break a story like that.
Oh, totally.
Of like,
Like
we've confirmed this character, like 2 years ahead of time, we're gonna know who's in it.
yeah, it's my dream job, like to be hired as an actor, but be a decoy for the paparazzi. And it's like, oh, who's this character? And then it's just like, gotcha.
I also just feel like I'm so bad at things that I'd be like, oh my God, Darth Vader. And like the drone would be like, whoop, TMZ reports.
That is very similar to Maxine, I want to say, because I think what was so endearing about
Like,
Maxine
yeah, there's a little of
is
that.
that she does have an inability, like she is a bad liar, and it's such a good thing. She like gives her opinion, and I thought it was so endearing. Like I love that. Like she is someone who like as she's not she's like it's not that she's not afraid to speak her mind. She just does it anyway, you know,
Yeah,
because she
she's
can't keep it
like,
in.
she's just like knee-jerk honesty because she also knows she's such a bad liar that she can't get away with it. So you might as well just say it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like she even says like one of my weaknesses it was so smart. Like it was like one of my weaknesses is being a bad liar. And like as if that's a character flaw. And I thought that
Right.
was so smart because I think people really do believe that. There are people in this world who believe being a bad liar is a sign of weakness.
Well, especially in the industry.
Yeah.
So I feel like it really warps your brain to some degree. Like I'm in
Mhm.
such a like I'm in indie film now. It's such a cozier part in comparison. Like back when I
Mhm.
was studio side, it's like, no, you're lying all the time. Or you're the person who says the truth and everyone's like, oh, such a killjoy. I'm like, I'm sorry that I didn't like Norbit. I'm not gonna lie about it.
I like there are like movies that came out that like people have like it was like Paul Blart too. Like I remember like meeting someone and them being like, "It's gonna be like trust me, it's gonna be good." Like really trying to convince themselves. And I was like, "This is Hollywood. This is Hollywood."
Yes. Like my boss and I talk all the time that we're like, we just sometimes wish like the clients would be like, hey, we know this is terrible. How do we market it? But instead we all have
Hmm.
to be like, what a stunning film. It's like, well, they're just not all stunning films.
No, yeah, we're all like just walking around on eggshells, to not just like accidentally hurt someone's feelings, which is good and bad.
Yeah, it's like it's not the worst thing, but sometimes
Yeah.
I'm like, nobody who made this is in the room. Like, can't we
Right.
just be normal about it?
Yes,
Is this
that's
someone
it.
who made it's in the room? Never. I will be so nice. Like that is not going to happen. But like,
No, no.
if it's all executives, let's be real.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Um, Switching focus, I want to talk about the bar that Max goes to regularly. Is it based on a bar in Los
It's
Angeles?
not. No, this is
I thought
very.
it was. I was picturing the 4100 bar the whole time. I'm like, is this
Oh,
4100
that
or
would be a good one. No,
yeah?
it's super
Okay.
not because it's sort of like I needed it to be at a certain place in Sunset Junction, and
Mm-hmm.
I needed it to be like kind of old and sad, but I
No.
needed it to be redeemable.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed it to be like, a lot of money for Sadie to buy, but like she could get there eventually, so it also can't be too nice. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, I just have to make this up. This just has to be fake because
Mm-hmm.
nothing suits this in real
There
life.
there were so many great details, like even down to like the shitty, not the shitty menus, but the silly menus that had Comic Sans, and it
They
was just
were
like,
pretty shitty. I mean, they
well, you know
just
what I
said like
mean.
drinks and like beer and wine. They didn't even list the beers and wines.
Right. It was like very like this was done on Microsoft Word in 1992, and we never changed it. It's like those small details just added so much. Just like it just added so much to like, oh, I could really envision this bar, and I really can understand, even though I thought it was 4100 or whatever.
No, I love
Um,
hearing that.
yeah. Tell me about the character of Sadie.
I really wanted to write someone who, like, Sadie's a bartender. She is Max's like biggest crush, and Max feels like she's just like unattainable. And to some degree, it's because Max is a decent human being who's like, when bartenders and baristas and waiters are cute with you, it's usually because that is their job,
Hmm.
and you should
Yeah.
not assume they're hitting on you.
Right. Yeah.
But she maybe takes it too far because many times it is, I think, as the writer, but still fairly
Hmm.
obvious that she is being hit upon. And
Yeah.
she's like, no, 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 bartenders are just super nice. And it's like, okay, this is maybe beyond that.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah.
wanted to write someone who seemed just like, I mean, that hot bartender energy. We all know it. Like, we've all been to a bar where you're just like, Jesus Christ, that person is ridiculously hot.
Right.
And I mean, I also feel that way about good baristas. Maybe that's saying more about how important coffee is to me. But
No,
there's
I
like,
think you're right. Yeah, I think you have we all remember hot baristas.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like they always have good forearms. I'm not sure what about being a barista doesn't, but they
People
often.
remember hot people who make sandwiches at Subway. Like
It's
like
true. I mean,
yeah.
yes, it's true. Like when when someone hot is serving you food or beverage, you're just like, this is the perfect thing. Like
Yeah.
I'm getting what I want, and you're very attractive, and
Yeah.
you're paid to be really nice to me. So like, this is just what a wonderful scenario for all of us.
Right, right.
But I wanted to write someone who seemed like that to Max and maybe would seem like that to a reader, but also was like not really that, who was also like a little bit of a disaster, like
Mhm.
behind the scenes, or at least not fully as together or like tough or cool as she seemed. Because like I think so much about I didn't start out to write this, but the book really ended up kind of being about perception and
Mhm.
how we see each other.
Mhm.
Because, Max really thinks she's like just this like tiny disaster that no one thinks is capable of anything. But it's like, well, you don't have that much respect at work, but like other people don't necessarily see you that way. And also because you are so ambitious and clearly good at your job, the people in your life think you are kind of a boss, even if you're
Mhm.
at this level. And that kind of became what people thought of her. And then for her to think of Sadie as this just like cool as hell person who just, secretly was sort of like barely holding a lot of things together.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think it was interesting because it does feel like they are going through similar things of just like existing in this world where people assume one thing about them and they're assuming other people are assuming, and they're kind of like internalizing it a bit, even though separate worlds, same
Yeah.
kind of behavior and thought process.
And how easy it can be to see that about someone else, but you still don't like she can see that like, oh, like Sadie's really hard on herself. And like really she's doing so many amazing things and her goals are great. And they do seem attainable as she keeps working at them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like she's just like, oh, no one can see me that way. And it's like, oh my God, you almost have it.
Yeah, totally. And even when like Sadie is, kind of talking about Max and saying like, this is how I see you, it's like, Max, you see, you know what I mean? Like it was
Yes.
just it was like such a striking moment.
Yeah. And I feel like I almost like that was something I sort of like found while I was writing, which I really is one of those I love when, the characters are sort of like, oh, this all lined up. I didn't really plan for this. This is great. And then
Mm-hmm.
of course, when you're editing, you can go back and like put it in on purpose. But it was
Yeah.
it was kind of a fun detail to find because I think when I started writing, I think I thought Matt. I think I initially was like, no, 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 Sadie's just really cool. And the more I wrote her, I was like, I don't know if she is. Like Max thinks she's cool, but
Mm-hmm. I mean, what is cool? They kind of, is like,
yeah,
what
well,
is
there's that
cool?
too. I was also, I think when I was early on writing it, I was rewatching New Girl and thinking
Mm-hmm.
about Nick, and he was just like just a disaster and kept all his cash in like a box. And I was like, well, I don't want Sadie to like keep her cash in a box. But like, I feel like men get to be hot bartenders who keep their cash in a box. And I was like, girl, you can have a little of that.
Yeah, you're allowed to have a few dollars in a box. I will let you
Because
have
I'm
that.
like, I feel like there's just guys who are like pathetic in ways and they're very hot, and you're just like, I accept this. And I'm like, I want a little of that for her. Just like she has this sad flip phone. She's
Mm-hmm.
just like so afraid of her like goals that she will like not talk to anyone about them, except as maybe a ruse to talk to someone she has a crush on. Like she's
Mm-hmm.
like bad at a lot of things even though she's capable of being good at all the things she's bad at, she's just sort of like, I'm noping out of all of it. So
Right. It's like
was
very deliberate, her actions. It's like they're covering up insecurities, but there's a
yeah.
deliberate, like, feeling to it.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know, I don't want to say everyone's guilty of it at points, but I think
Sure. Yeah.
most of us have something where we're like, that's hard to do. People might not think I can. I will just not try it all instead. That's the alternative.
Right. Yeah. Because I think, sometimes it's just like, I think life is too short to like put in effort to make it better. So let's just keep.
Yes.
And
Or if
that's
you're like,
basically
well,
the
I'm
theme of the
probably gonna
book.
fail, let's just call it quits now. That's
Yeah,
fine.
let's just have fun as we fail. But this is actually a very good segue because a main plot point in the book is that Max decides to sign up for this, like, for her roommate who is an influencer, and she's promoting this, like, self improvement app. And Max decides to kind of like be the guinea pig for it. And it feels like he really tapped into something because, like, everyone I know right now, including myself, is doing some sort of self improvement app. I have like a million of them on my phone right now.
I just have like Duolingo plus therapy. So that's kind of the
Those are
thing.
good. I have like Be a Witch, like don't like well the ADHD thing and
Yeah.
therapy. I consider my erotica app to be
Yeah,
self
yeah, that's
improvement.
self-care.
And self-care. So yeah, I mean, I just like I feel like I have like all of these things, but it just feels like right now, and I don't know if it was like a post-pandemic thing or just like what it's like in Los Angeles now, but like it feels like everyone is thinking self-improvement, self-improvement, self-improvement these days.
Yeah, everyone I talked to when I was writing this book was like, "Oh, I would use that app and just let it tell me what to do."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, I mean, there are people who are like, oh, I'm meeting in accountability groups and I like check in with a friend once a week. And it's like, I think like, it's like, this really tapped into like, we're in an era of like, it's time to get our shit together in our
Yes.
own way.
Yeah, and it's sort of like when you try all the tools you already have and they're not working, you're like, we got to bring in some other people because this is not
Hmm.
going the way I wanted to.
Yeah. And like, I think it also kind of talks about, like, kind of goes into this good, like, really like smart kind of take on the idea of like, gamifying self-improvement in a way. Like the app, like, was just like what she finds from the app is like, oh, this is, it felt more about like she was like kind of like trying to like score points and get higher and higher, as opposed like the term level up, I
Yeah.
is very like it's a poignant term in 2024 when you have a self-improvement app.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wanted to also like the advice is all like basically like say yes more, try harder. It's
Hmm.
like anyone could tell you those things, but for some reason it takes like an app telling you for you to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And what she brings up in the book, like she's, has a free trial, but like this is a cost. You're paying so much money for an app to just like have a picture of a bumblebee being like, buzz your way through positivity. And then like, you're like, my
And
life's changed.
when you're in your 20s, if you had more money, you would have fewer problems.
Yeah.
Let's admit it. So it's also sort of so disingenuous to be like, hey, if you do this app, like things will be better. It's like, yes, if I had the money for that app, they certainly would be.
Hmm. And it's like weird because these days apps are like kind of like making it seem like we're the alternative to seeing a therapist or
Yes.
going to this or doing that. Like
I
it's
looked at
really
one
is
of
like,
those like app therapist things and I was like, I could not believe how much money it was. I'm like, I think I'd rather pay slightly more and have a real therapist.
yeah, yeah. And it's like it's almost like anything you ever want ever in your life, it's in your phone now. Like
Yes.
and it is like not that that's good or bad. I have a shit ton of apps and things that I use, but it's like, oh yeah, like we are getting so separated from each other. We're all our
Yeah.
best friends are phones. Our best friends are phones.
And I really like I wanted this book to be a lot about like connection because like a lot of for consideration was about like reconnection,
Yeah.
like reconnecting with her friends, reconnecting with like the idea of like falling in love. And I wanted to write about like when I moved to LA, I think I was like, this is a cool place and I'm gonna be cool and I'm gonna like have cool friends and cool adventures. And I got here and I was like, I am still me. I did
Mhm.
not get a secret key to like unlock the cool part of me.
Mhm.
I'm now
Mhm.
just me in a different place. And like
Yeah.
that feeling was very unsettling because like in my head it was always just like when I pictured getting here, it was like this completely different life. I don't know why I thought that. Like I was clearly just gonna keep being this person.
I know exactly why you thought that. At the end of that one movie with Jennifer Connelly when and that other guy when they work in Target and they go out and they're in Los Angeles, it's the two of them sitting poolside cheersing. That's what I thought LA was going to be.
I absolutely was like, there's just gonna be pools everywhere. There's gonna be like people having drinks outside everywhere. You're just gonna get like wrapped up in some cool group of people. You don't like,
Yeah.
and by the way, those things actually can happen. You just have to work at it. It's not gonna be like handed to you.
No, yeah, and that is an important lesson in the book is like, oh, okay, like you do need to like an app isn't going to give you the things that you want. It's like you need to go after it.
Yeah.
Um I did really enjoy as much as I love the love story, it was very swoon worthy and all that. For some reason, I also loved the communities that she was making. She was like as she was going like through her process of connecting like with her coworkers and then also like joining a kickball team. Like that to me, I was like, I love this kickball team so much. Like I want to see a TV series about this kickball
Oh my God.
team.
I know. It was almost hard. Like once the kickball team showed up, I was like, this could be the whole book, and it is not the whole book. And I had to almost like keep like pulling it back from like fully exploding into just like the kickball team.
Right. They were amazing. And I
It
was
was so
and
much
I was
fun writing them.
oh, you could tell. Like I just like loved their dynamic that they all had nicknames and like I was like, "Oh, I hope some of the next books involve this kickball team." Although a lot of them do have wives, but I they
I
were
know. I
yeah.
did like they are almost all. That is the really complicated part of
Mhm.
writing a universe where you want to be able to pull people is
Yeah.
that once you have a spouse, you're kind of like, okay, they're
Story's
happy.
done. Yeah,
That's
go
not
home.
them.
Yeah.
So I'll just say, like, at this point, I have no more kickball shenanigans.
Okay.
But like, I feel like there's like a way I can at least have like a cameo of the kickball team in like book four. So we'll see. We'll
That
see.
would be amazing. I really need to check in with them because
The
like
bar gets
yeah.
like spoiler alert. I don't really like to announce things ahead of time, but I will just say that like the bar gets a few extra appearances in book three. So
Ooh. That's exciting. I'm excited to cuz you well, actually now I'm about to spoil the epilogue, but I'm excited to see where Johnny's the bar goes and
I mean, I don't think
yeah.
anyone picks up a romance where someone's trying to save a bar and thinks like the bar is doomed.
I mean, I feel like it depends, like I feel like it depends on like what the context. It's
Yes.
context. But speaking of checking in on past characters, we did see the characters from your previous book in this, and it seems like they're doing well, and I love checking in on them as well.
It was it was really that was the first time I've never written a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, oh, how do I like balance this? How do I, like how do you make it where it's like fun but not too like you want to I want to make fans happy, but I'm also like I don't want it to just be like fan service. It needs to like serve a point in the book too.
Oh
So
yeah,
it
yeah.
was it was tricky for me, but I was really ultimately happy where it landed.
I thought it flowed really well, and I thought like it. There were parts of it that like really allowed like your sense of humor to really shine. Like, and I think there was one moment where like Ari is like, "Pick your poison," and like and like Maxine is like, I wish I could like be one of those people where I could say like pick your poison and it would be cool. Like, like it's just like it just spoke that moment spoke to me.
I also just feel like I've put this in every book now, which is just that like hot people can be really cheesy and you're like, hell yeah. And it works on you. You're like, this is great. And if anyone else did or said these things, you'd be like, stop it.
No.
You're
Yeah.
embarrassing.
There is something about like celebrities and hot people where it's like they can say the dumbest things and it's so smart. They can be so mean but still so nice, and they can like, just put on trash and look gorgeous.
So good. Yes. And I have a lot of fun with that, especially because like something I really like is when hot people within like something are like acknowledged by others as hot. Because
Mhm.
like sometimes in like a romance novel, like I actually think a lot of them are great about this, but there's this level of like everyone is hot and like no one comments on it. It's just sort of like this world is hot. And
Yeah.
I love it when like characters are like, oh my God.
Yeah. Mhm.
Like I went a couple months ago, I went to Vidiot's to see Working Girl,
Mhm.
which I had only seen pieces of, I think, before. But there's like a there's like a scene where like Harrison Ford's character like changes his shirt in his office, but the walls are glass, and all
Mhm.
the women are looking at him and are like
Yes.
staring in. And I'm like, correct. If someone who looked like Harrison Ford worked in your office, you would not be like, that's a simple like a typical man. You would not think that. You would be like, this is a very objectively handsome man. And if he takes his shirt off, I will look if he
Yeah.
has glass walls. And I was like, anything like that always makes me happy. So I'm always like, if there's like a celebrity who is freaking hot, it will be
Mhm.
acknowledged in my. Do not worry, readers.
Oh yeah. This
The
isn't
hotness
like
will be acknowledged.
yeah, because like there are like things where it's like oh, like you said, like everyone in this is like so hot. Like for some reason, like this like fantasy kingdom, like no one's not.
This small town is just rife with hot
They
people.
all go to the gym, or they have like really good genetics. They're all in the army, or they're all werewolves. So that's why that's what makes them hot, because
It's
you're
true.
just automatically hot if you're a werewolf.
Yeah, everyone knows that, and that's what's happening. But yeah, I love it. I love a world where it's like, no, these people are a little hotter, and we all know it, and we can talk about
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, so with Nina and Max, like comparing these two characters, like what character was more kind of closer to you? You know?
You know, I felt like it was gonna be Nina because
Mm-hmm.
like she's closer to my age. There were definitely some things within my own life that I took and put into that book. And it felt, and also it was just like, I think anytime it's like the first book in a category you're writing, like my first adult romance, I'm pulling so much because it's like the first one and I haven't used
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it before. And so she felt very close to me. And then once I really started working on At Her Service, I really, all that stuff about like being from a small town and coming to LA and expecting your life to change, or like, feeling like so much pressure to like make this work. And like, but what you're doing is just like kind of Hollywood nonsense. And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, is this what my family wants me? Like, I'm trying to like make them proud. And I'm just like trying to get someone like the best lunch reservation. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so I just like a lot of those pieces went into, and so then I was like, by the time I got done, I was like, oh man, this is just like so much of my 20s in a book. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like every time I think it's like a character is not quite like me, or I'm going to be having to like I love pulling stuff from real life, and I love like writing things that are not from real life too. But it's funny how now like twice in a row I was like, well, wasn't really that was not going to be that much like me, but I just there's a lot of me in it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel very close to Max in like a in like a younger, soft way. And I feel like with Nina, it's a little more of like who I am now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, some of the scenes between the two of them, like when they would meet up, it I loved those scenes so much because it was like one protagonist is passing the baton off the other protagonist, but
Yeah.
it was also like, oh, like they are similar characters just because they come from the same writer, but like to see them
Yeah, yeah.
like to like see them interact and just like I don't know, I loved those scenes together with the two of them.
Well, the nice thing too is that like, anyone who's read for consideration is not going to be like, well, it feels like Nina's got it all. Like, you're going to know that she's probably still being like really neurotic about certain things and like
Mm-hmm.
nervous about some things. But like to Max, who's younger, who like really wants to be in a relationship and isn't, who like she just like and who like wants to really be more grown up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she looks at Nina and sees like such just like an accomplished, perfect adult. And it's also fun to like, again, I love playing with perception because
Mm-hmm.
there is no way Nina would hear that and be like, that track. She'd be like, what? No. I mean, and even there's even a little bit of that in the book where she's like,
Yeah.
I'm not where I want to be in my career. Like, yeah, there are things that are good, but it's not, it's not everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was great. And it just made me realize that you dedicated this book to the people who are cosplaying as adults, which is everyone.
Which is everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just like thought that was a very I lovely way to begin the book. I was like, okay, yep, this I know this book. I am in good hands.
Well, and I feel like I like talking about stuff like that too, because I feel like so many of us are like, oh my gosh, everyone else knows what they're doing. I'm like stumbling through. And then, I talk to like even like my friends who have kids or like, like raising other humans, and they're like, I don't know. I don't feel like a grown up.
Yeah, no no
That
one
didn't do
does.
it. No.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost like felt like, we all have this like belief that like, oh, we have to get our life into a certain place before we can fall in love, before we can do this, before we can do that, which is brought up in the book. But it's almost like we feel like we need to be an assistant to ourselves and get everything in
Yes.
order before our
Yes.
boss selves can really flourish. And it's like, who's living here? Who's in
Yeah.
charge?
And also, it's so funny because like you'll think that, and then you like go into the world and you meet people who are like disasters and also have like a beautiful spouse and like a cool
Mm-hmm.
job or something else. And it's like none of this is like we've put these rules on ourselves. Like this is not
Yes.
and I
Mm-hmm.
also think like in my 20s and early 30s, I was much more apt to listen to like other people who would say things like, "Oh, well, you can't do that until you at least try this," or "You can't do this unless you've gotten this many years of experience," or
Mm-hmm.
like this person got started ahead of you, so you should probably like wait for them. And of course, you get older and you're like, that person was not even trying to gatekeep. They just didn't know enough and they were probably trying to help in a weird way. But like, I feel like you also hit a certain point. You're like, I don't really need to ask other people's permission for like the stuff I'm trying to do. I could just like figure it out.
Yeah. Do you feel like that kind of is true for writing romance, going from YA to writing
Yes,
romance?
that is so true. I really was like, oh my gosh, is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Even like not like one of my friends is a really successful romance writer, and like I think of like the close friends I told I was writing for consideration, she was like the last one because I'm like, what will she say? Will she allow
Right.
me to
Yeah.
kick them? As if like, first of all, like I have any good friends now who would be like, no, you can't.
Yeah, who says that? But like I completely understand like the things that like you care about the most. Like I keep things secret from other people all the time
All the
because
time.
I like the people that who's like well, I mean I respect a lot of people so I don't talk to anyone. But like I do.
Yeah. I think it's
Yeah.
I was gonna say I think it's normal. I do think it's normal. I have friends who don't, and I'm always impressed with them. But I feel like I'm so bad at it that I'm even like, hide your heart, stop it.
Yeah, you're afraid you're going to jinx it, you
Yeah,
know?
I'm always, yes. So
It's this weird thing,
yeah,
but it makes
I'm
sense.
always like, I don't believe in anything supernatural, but I believe in jinxing.
Yes, as does Max, and like I like there was she had a line in it that I need to use like to the rest of my family of like just let me have this jinx. Just let me be afraid of this jinx. I'm saying things that make no sense. Like please, I know it's irrational. Just let me have it. This is important.
Yeah. It's like I feel like that really that's so straight from my own brain.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. Like you could be as like atheist and secular as possible, but when it comes to things like this, like there is someone who is actively against me, and I have to fool
Yeah.
them or
You
something.
can't if you want it too much and people know you're never gonna get it.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to spoil it. Well, Amy, tell us when the
Yes.
book is out. All the
Out
deets we need
on,
to know.
yeah, it's out on February 20th.
Okay.
If you're in Los Angeles, my launch event is on the 19th at Skylight Books. So please come. If you're in St. Louis, it's on whatever that Saturday is, which I think is the 24th. But maybe? No. I'm not sure. It's Saturday that week. Find the 20th, move your finger down the calendar. Saturday, come to Left Bank Books. You'll find me.
Ooh, that'll be fun. I'm so excited for you. I again like I I read For Her Consideration last year and I'm like, "Oh wow, I started the year off like reading one of the best books." Did the same thing this year, Amy. I
Yay!
loved At Her Service. It was so good. It just like I imagine it speaks to me as having once been 20s in my 20s in Los Angeles, but I feel like it speaks to adults who are about to turn 40,
Yeah, I
So,
think,
yeah.
yeah, I sometimes like, it's the thing if you're like, oh, it would be nicer if maybe so much of this was still not so relatable to me. But I don't know. I think anything about why connecting with people is important. I think anything about like why it's hard to see yourself as you are and you can let, other people's good opinions of you hold weight. I think that is like lifelong for a lot of us. And I think,
Hmm.
I think that'll resonate. I hope so.
Oh, 100%. People are going to love it, and I hope, and I'm so excited for you. Like I'm excited for the next book in the Out in Hollywood series, because it's just such a great world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like in the middle of like I've written the first draft and like I need notes and it is a little messy. So I'm like, yeah, maybe one day you'll read it when it's good, but
We don't
I'm
want to jinx it. We're not trying to
theoretically
jinx
excited about
it.
it too. Yes, no jinxing.
Listen, it's going to be great. Well, Amy, thank you so much for returning to the show. You're welcome back anytime. Yeah, this was delightful.
I am so happy to have done this. I love chatting with you about romance and about my fictional characters and about jinxing and the power of it.
For links to purchase Amy's book, check out the show notes or visit the episode page at tstlpodcast.com. Too Stupid to Live is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. For more podcasts you love, visit frolic.media/podcasts. And if you like this podcast, why not leave a review on Apple Podcasts? That would really help me out. Thank you so much for listening and have a great rest of your day.